Welcome, everybody, to our monthly forecast and discussion of current energies. This month, we're going to be looking at October 2020. It is the 26th of September. And I want to welcome all of you from the Sacred Self-Healing community joining me here. My name is Jona Bryndis in this deeper view, this deeper look into what's ahead of us. This is not a channeling or a prediction. This is actually a reading of collective energies. It's more a reporting and forecasting than predicting. So if someone wants to really do this, it's very important to look back and review. And this is why we start our discussion with a review of the months that we're in. Yeah, we still have a few days to go, and contemplate about how these things that were basically already foreseeable in like a month ago in August, how they came to play or how they were playing out. I call them antidotes. This refers back to the forecast that I did for 21, 22, and 23, which was called inoculation. And this is all clear now what I meant with it back then. But in the beginning of December last year, all that wasn't so visible. Now we know why. I was talking about certain things that are coming to expression, some of which are coming to expression as we speak in real time, and especially in October. We're going to look into October energies here in a little bit, probably like 10 or 15 minutes after we've discussed sort of your personal transformations and what came forward for you in September. Yeah, I've predicted that this month would be a month that is associated with purpose seeking, with really sort of finding out what we truly need, what we truly want based on who we are today, and how that may have changed over the years, and how this requires us perhaps to come up with a different attitude towards ourselves, a different strategy, life strategy, if you will, and perhaps even also sort of on that deeper level, the shadow clearing that you see here, that is generally a positive process in self-healing, yeah, because it actually helps us to discover our strengths and our inner powers. But when we stand in front of it and we have to own our own parts and how we've contributed to certain aspects of our life, it always feels like we have to go through something, like the deep, dark night of the soul. I'd love to hear from you how these things that I predicted in September, how they have been playing out for you. You guys are all listening from different countries, from different societies. So some things will have played out where you are located more so than in other places. So we will realize that even though we are all on the same journey, namely the journey of discovering and experiencing our higher self from within ourselves, that our journeys can be quite different depending on which reality we find ourselves in. And I'd love to hear from you guys at this point how this has been translating for you in September, or how it's still unfolding. Who would like to share? I can give a few examples myself. I'll use myself as an example. I've started a prayer group, as many of you know. It's a daily energy prayer, as I call it, on YouTube Live every day. We're coming together randomly, people from all over the world, for prayer, for deeper contemplation, roughly 20 minutes long, where we actually write our own prayer and make our words become alive. Something that I have started like 8 years ago. I started a remote prayer group in which volunteers from all over the world came together to actually do energy healing sessions for people in need. This has shifted now basically into us needing to step up for ourselves, and it is something that I have been having on my heart for a long time, and I feel that this is very, very rewarding and fulfilling for me. And this made me think about purpose and, you know, why that is that I find this kind of work, yeah, nonprofit work, so to speak. I've also founded a school, a nonprofit private school here in Florida, and I'm spending the majority of my time with nonprofit projects right now, and I feel extremely motivated and on fire really about bringing and sharing all that I have learned on my journey to people that may not be able to afford it or may not be able to have access to it. Yeah, that's something that I have discovered here in September, and it is really the fruit of a lot of labor of many, many years. Yeah, so it's these kind of things don't happen overnight, but the decisions to do them, they happen overnight. They literally happen like, you know, taking a shower and I'm like, okay, today is the day. I'm just gonna do it. Yeah, and September was such a day, such a month for me. I didn't mean to make an example out of myself. I just wanted to share the process here, how this can come to us. Yeah, it's not like an 180 degree of who you are. It is just something that feels like courage or fearlessness all of a sudden. Yeah, and maybe for some of you, it has not yet led to you taking this into 3D. Maybe you're still contemplating, maybe you're still trying to figure this out, how to do this. But I can promise you that October is going to be the month where this needs to happen. Yeah, there is no better condition to start anything new, whether it is your own business as opposed to having to work for somebody else, or it's starting something new, maybe a new career, or maybe just simply really dedicating your energy or your time to something greater than yourself. Yeah, it's really the time for that. It's what I've called coming out of the woodwork. It has this like coming out energy here, building now. It's already here in September, but it really goes into the 3D, into the physical and the sensual in October. Who would like to share maybe those kind of impulses, or there are things that you're thinking about perhaps changing in your life, or something new that you want to start that came forward for you here in this
Hi,
past
this
week?
is Becky.
Hey Becky, how are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I'm just like sitting here trying to find the words to express everything that happened this month or is happening. Because a lot I feel like has happened, at least within and around, and a lot of it for me has been like you talked, like kind of stepping up. Um, Realizing how much I've been hiding and avoiding, and
Mhm.
um, just how much I've been hiding and avoiding, and needing to step up to take responsibility for my life and be a part, an active participant in it.
Yeah, I
lot
mean,
of shit.
taking responsibility always sounds so scary when we say that, right? It sounds
Eh,
it sounds parental almost, right? You have to take
And it
responsibility.
has been, yeah, and that's how it has been in the past, but there's a shift that happened this month where it was more like, okay, if I want to live my life as the highest expression that I can,
Mhm.
I have to shift that perspective.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was a lot happening. I'm currently in school and um, with like, vaccination and politics and stuff happening and needing to kind of stand up for myself there, as well as finding a way to financially support myself in a way that feels true, that excites me. I was recently just got this impulse to work with kids and maybe tutor and online or in person, and just kind of started following that impulse and kind of reignited this like passion in me that I forgot about.
Yeah,
That's
it's an
kind of
ignition.
been there.
It really
Yeah.
felt that way. I've called this these purge energies. It's something that wants to come out. It just really needs that one last sort of trigger. For some of us, this whole mandate thing is actually bringing in that. Yeah, is that the way it was for you too? Because you mentioned this with all the
Yes.
politics around job and school and all that. It kind of forces us to stand up for ourselves, and it
Mhm.
makes us double check, yeah,
Yes, and
on where we're
reevaluate, like,
standing. Hmm.
yeah, and like, okay, well, actually, I have a choice here. Is this what I truly want?
Hmm.
And how do I want this if I do choose this? So it almost like provided more space for choice when before it didn't feel like there was a choice because I was stuck feeling like hiding and not wanting to to stand up and
Yeah, this Becky, just for you and really everyone, I've been using words such as the confrontation with untruth
yes.
for the last year
Yeah.
or two. And I want to point out at this point, at this time, that I am not just talking about untruth as in regards to lies. Okay, untruth is not necessarily a lie, yeah, or a false truth. An untruth can be something that we can feel within ourselves as not true for us. And the confrontation with an untruth is something that forces us to grow, is something that forces us to ask ourselves, yeah, to fully internalize what is true for us. Yeah.
Mhm.
And maybe it becomes more clear because this is literally what I read out of what you just shared. There were confrontations that you had that not like as enforced you, but as in
Mhm.
that made you come out of the woodwork.
Exactly. It did.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
And
a good
there was a
thing.
decision too, though, like you were talking about it. It it was the decision to do it.
Yeah,
There was one day where I decided I'm doing this. I'm standing. This is my truth. I'm not
yeah,
going to do and then it was after that.
yeah. It makes a person stronger.
Yeah.
This is the part here. Also, this negative connotation that we put onto responsibility. This is the part that we need to recontextualize. All
Yeah.
right, confrontation with untruth is something positive.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
taking responsibility is
It's
something positive. It is something that literally, and I don't know a better word than forcing, but it puts us
it,
into this place, yeah, where we have to make a conscious choice. And in that moment, and we may be scared shitless in the moment, yeah, that we have to do this, but in that moment, we are standing taller. We
Mhm.
are growing into our own power.
Mhm.
And it isn't, as a coach, obviously, I can't emphasize this enough. It is that moment where all the fears and all that suddenly disappears. And when a person does that step, that's why as a coach, my goal is always to lead a person to that place. Yeah. Because as a person does that one step, all these other things that were sort of hiding within that person, they're suddenly unfolding. These doors are suddenly opening up. They were always there. We couldn't
Yeah.
see it, couldn't feel it, because we were too busy or wasted too much energy on trying to fog ourselves up. Yeah.
And trying to force an outcome which I hadn't even felt through too. It was just, this is just what it is, kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean, it really forces us to wake up. This is
Yeah.
a waking up that you are
Yeah.
describing,
Yeah.
because just the idea that we don't have a choice. Yeah, the idea that we don't have a choice is typically just an opinion. Yeah, it's something that we have either learned or that we're conditioned to, or something that appears that way to us. Yeah. Um, I give you a very funny example. It's so pragmatic, and I still crack up laughing about this. When I was younger, I always wore clothes that were slightly too tight, slightly too small, because I had a body image problem, right? I always felt that I was too fat and whatnot, right? So I would buy my clothing one size too small, because that was sort of the idealized way how I wanted to see myself. And I was miserable, and it took me so long to figure this out, that if I just bought things one size larger, that I would feel so much more comfortable.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a great example of it.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, who cares, what size I'm wearing? That's just in my head. All right. I never thought I had a choice there.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was that moment, and it's such a like a duh thing, when you're negotiating with yourself. Should I wear this size or that size? To go by what feels better to you. Yeah, what makes you feel like you're freer, or you can move better, or you can live healthy, or whatever it pertains. Yeah, but these little sort of self-imposed restrictions that we often live with in our lives. Yeah, this is really what September and especially October here are good for, to show them to us, to a point where, I don't know if you're already there yet, Becky, but to a point where you look back and you're asking yourself, I don't even remember how I saw this before. What took me so
Yes.
long? Or,
It's,
or what was
yeah,
that was holding me
years.
back?
I mean,
Yeah.
years. Something came up for me recently, and it was that self-imposed restriction. I was like, oh my gosh, my whole entire way of perceiving myself and the world and the energetic sensitivity,
Mhm.
how I have used that,
Mhm.
and as an excuse or justification, and all, like, oh, it was, yeah, it
But
showed.
you have something working for you, Becky. And that your use. Okay. I happen to know how old you are, and
Yeah.
to come to that realization before you're 30, that is quite an accomplishment. All right. Not like as an that this would be a race or some kind of performance issue, but this is usually a realization that comes much later in life for people. Okay, and you're in good company in that way, because it really takes that outer confrontation, okay, that we are all experiencing right now. And it kind of levels things out. It doesn't matter how old we are right now. It affects us all. Yeah. And that sort of call to authenticity, that call to action, that call to stand up for ourselves is can be felt now by everybody. And it is in our human nature that we only do this if we really, really, really don't have any other choice. The part that you have kind of mentioned here, yeah, like the judgment about that, and also the identification aspect of sort of seeing ourselves as flawed, or seeing ourselves somehow inhibited through whatever, maybe the trauma of our past, the family system that we come, or the skin color, or the gender, or the society, or the culture that we're from, whatever it is. These things are all leveling out right now. It is a very cool thing that you could verbalize that, because quite frankly, that's going to be a big part of October energies, to recontextualize the way we see ourselves in this world. Yeah, this has to do with identity, and that's not age related. It just gives you almost like a good head start, because you know, you're at an age where you're supposed to figure all this out. Yeah, you're supposed to do this right now. It's basically age appropriate. Yeah, it's much harder for old folks like myself. Yeah, heading to their 60s, you know, to look back and say, oh, you know, I've spent like 45 years in this. Yeah, that it becomes increasingly harder. Okay, the older you get, yeah, to uncover that and to own our own parts. All right, so in that way, anyone here older than, you know, 45, 50, 55, you know, for you guys, it's more or less now something that, if you look into your own sort of family history, that has been sort of passed down from one generation to another, and you're about to really break through some massive family karma here in this lifetime, which is huge. This will also be a big aspect of October. Yeah, so Becky, for your age group, it's more, you know, letting go of all these false identities and the narratives that we have been more or less feeding ourselves with without even knowing where they came from. Yeah, without even questioning them. So confrontation with untruths, guys, is what promotes that, is what actually makes us grow. Yeah, and I want you to see that, and also here in conjunction with the sacred self-healing and a spiritual contextualization, that it is through darkness that we recognize the light. Yeah, very, very important to understand. Okay. Any more sharing? Anybody else? Things that have been unfolding for you in September that really shifted the way you see yourself or your life or what you do, maybe new impulses that are coming in. The way I've contextualized this last month in the forecast was saying yes to your true self. Yeah, Becky gave us a beautiful example of this just right now. Or something that came forward for you where you suddenly felt fearless about something that you withheld out of fear before.
I can try and talk about
Hi.
this. Hi, Heather from Canada. Um, I missed a lot of what Becky said. I logged on a little bit late, so I hope I'm not overlapping. But definitely what I've been faced with, full frontal faced with, is understanding that I am not able to run away from my trauma. It is a part of me. It is who I am. It's part of who I am. And it may sound like, you know, over talked about, because I know that we do talk about this quite a bit, but it's just a huge epiphany for me to understand that I'm just never going to get rid of it. It doesn't work like that. It's just understanding that it's a part of me, and some of the reasons why I think the way I do, or behave or act the way that I do. And now that I have a good grasp on that, I feel like I can have some more self-healing on a depth that I haven't been able to quite reach before. So I'm actually really happy about about understanding that and getting to that understanding. It's not something I can really put words to other than saying it like it is.
No, I really get this, and it's very much in line with what Becky said, just on a different topic. You know, Becky talked about her energetic sensitivity and how she identified with that and used that as a means to hide or avoid certain things. Yeah, and I hear you more or less saying the same thing. You know, just in regards to your personal, you know, what you've already identified as trauma. Okay. It's the same process. It's the recognition first and foremost that it just is. All right. So especially when we're looking at trauma that occurred, let's say in the first 20 years of our lives, yeah, it's not really that we've wanted it that way. Yeah, we didn't really have the means to want anything in the first 20 years of our life, no matter what we thought at the time. I obviously thought I was a grown-up when I was 13, you know, but the truth is, obviously, I wasn't. So a lot of what I've experienced as trauma, Heather, um, and took me a long time to see that in the same way that you've just, and you've verbalized this beautifully, by the way, that you've expressed that. Yeah, it just is, and it is a part of me. And it is that moment that you accept that, all right, where you can uncover the powers and the strengths that you've developed. Because if one consciously or unconsciously goes against something, yeah, let's say I want to get rid of my trauma, I want to get rid of this or rid of that, right? We're going against something, and I've explained this last month, how this works vibrationally. We're actually energizing it. Yeah, we are not able to recognize basically the parts here that have developed for us. Yes, we were forced to develop those skills or those powers, as I called them a minute ago, but we are unable to recognize and appreciate them. There is something I've said in many different variations before, and that is that it is our trauma really that produces the depth of our own identity. It is not the comfort zone that does that. I have few clients, guys, who are trying to figure out who they are and who suffer from meaninglessness in life because they've never actually really experienced any kind of trauma. And this may sound like a ridiculous kind of problem to you, yeah, for someone who's had or who's identified already that there's a lot of trauma in your life that forced you to do a lot of things, yeah, that you didn't want to do at the time. Yeah, this may sound like a nice problem to have, but trust me, when it comes to actually resolving this and you know, really healing things such as who am I, what is my purpose, it is a lot easier for people who have had trauma. Not to say that you have to have had trauma in order to, all right, this is not what I'm saying, but what I mean to say with this is that our trauma shapes us, yeah? Our scars shape us and they teach us something. And just in the way that we've just talked about it with Becky, the confrontation with untruth forces us to step into our truth. Yeah, so does our trauma. Yeah, whether it is a trauma that was that occurred, you know, to us or through us, or we caused it, it's actually irrelevant. It is that confrontation with this amount of pain, yeah, that forced us to develop coping mechanisms and skill sets that other people don't have. So, in other words, what I'm saying, Heather, this is a huge step for self-healing, and I totally understand what you're saying. that you can look at your self-healing journey now in a different way, because you no longer fixated on sort of quote unquote getting rid of your trauma. You're starting to, maybe not yet how you're seeing this, but you're starting to appreciate that, because there are some skills that you have picked up in the process of having to deal with things that most people don't have to deal with, all right, that provide a really strong sense of self and self-reliance. Self-healing looks at, or healing altogether, at increasing the vibration of that. And for those of us who have experienced a lot of trauma, it means to find healthier or more constructive versions of that. So it's not, never really about making our trauma go away. It's about balancing out and finding healthier versions of these coping mechanisms that we were forced to develop. And that is an extremely liberating journey. Yeah, to step out of our trauma almost with a sense of, I don't want to glorify this here, but with a sense of pride. Yeah, with a sense of self-reliance and trust in self. Yeah, that with all the things that we have overcome already, some of the things that are, let's say, happening right now in the world are just simply not as bad. They're simply not as black and white as most people see it, and it can make us stay calm. It can make us become resourceful. It can help us see how much we have actually learned to deal with crisis. Yeah, we just need to find a healthier way. Yeah, healthier as compared to before. And maybe that's the part here that was missing before, Heather. Yeah, that's possible. Yes, it's possible. So you don't have to go against your trauma, and you don't have to even think that that's a negative. Yeah, you just got to know it. Okay, you just got to understand that there are certain situations in which your trauma is more likely to be triggered than other situations. And that said, I do need to send this message out now to all of you in regards to October, namely that what we are experiencing here right now in regards to what I have previously referred to mind control and media wars is triggering on a subconscious level trauma in many of you. Can I see a hand sign here? Who of you has identified that you have been in a situation or relationship or family system, yeah, or maybe a job situation where you were confronted with like a narcissistic kind of personality type, or gaslighting of any sort? Yeah, where people will constantly sort of making you question your own perception. It is actually enough to be an energetically sensitive to having had or developed that kind of trauma, because as energetically sensitive, you are always perceiving things in a slightly different way than other people. And so you're like literally set up for it. Okay, just so you guys know, thank you all for raising your hands. That is 100% of you. And I am not surprised. It is 100% of this audience that has been in situations like that before. Either grew up in such a situation, or was confronted with it at work, or in a relationship. And what we are experiencing here right now in this world, where our perception is constantly being questioned, yes, and not just like it was before. Not just in the sense that we think we're the weird ones. No, in this so obvious and blatant way, where we are being told that we are seeing it wrong. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? In fact, it's actually impossible to even know anymore what's right and wrong, because for every piece of information out there is a counterpiece. We're literally being bombarded with, if you will, this reality and that reality at the same time. Yeah. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? That triggers a cognitive dissonance in all of us collectively. All right. And that means that we here, as those who are already aware that this is part of our trauma, we have to be very, very conscientious about this. We have to understand that this is triggering our personal trauma from the past. And now comes the cool part about that, guys. Because most of you have already identified this and to certain degrees already worked through this. You are now the small percentage of people here on this planet who know how to get through this. Not how to become better copers or suck it up or how to avoid and hide. No. How to stand up and say things such as, you know what, it's okay if you believe that or if you see it that way. But, from my perspective, no matter how I twist or turn it, it's not okay. And it doesn't work for me. Yeah, this doesn't work for me, and I don't need to justify. I don't need to prove that. I don't need to convince anybody. I can walk out. This is what most of you have already learned in the process of becoming aware and self-healing your trauma of the past. You guys are prepared. You guys have armor. You guys have weapons. You have tools. The majority of people out there doesn't. And this is the very same people that made you question your reality are now getting sucked into something that they, in their worldview, never believed to be possible. Something that you've seen all along. The task for us now is to withstand the judgment and I told you so. Some of you here have been following me for many years, and I don't know if you remember reading this in any of my forecasts or truth talks or whatever. I said in 21, the conspiracy theorists are going to have a field day. Do you guys now understand how I meant that? Yes, we have to refrain from that because, and this is a big part of our own self-healing. Because when we get into that place that Becky described to us or Heather described to us, it is the compassion that we can have for ourselves, namely knowing that we simply couldn't see this before. Yeah? Whatever it is that we are realizing in the process of healing our trauma, yeah, that we were unable to see it before, and that it is the self-forgiveness and the self-absolution, yeah, that comes in the process of this deeper healing that allows us to move past our trauma or past these adverse conditions of the past. Yeah, we know better than anybody else what it can mean to get stuck in our own ego mind and to not be able to see anything beyond that. That was our karmic teaching, guys, through our trauma. And therefore, it is very important that we don't just recognize this for ourselves now, but also that we apply it, that we embody it, and that we say, that we understand why at least half of the population, depending what country you're in, cannot see certain things. Yeah. There is no need to judge that. There is only, and this is the beauty of October, the question whether or not we actually do this consequentially and share our wisdom and maybe mentor or train or help other people now. Because look, for the majority of people, especially in October now and moving forward, November and December, increasingly, it's a really harsh awakening. Beyond what we can imagine right now. No worries, it's not the apocalypse. That's not where this is going. Yes, I know our mind immediately goes into that. But it's not that. It's just that the belief is shattered. Everything that people believed in, that they thought was sort of unbreakable rules of societal living, all these rules will turn out to be broken. And there'll be a strong feeling of betrayal that we will experience, all of us, like not we here as the ones present, but similar to what you have been experiencing previously. And so I want to call all of you to patience, yeah, and see that this awakening process, just like when you awakened to certain aspects of your journey, yeah, where you had to own your own part, where you had to go into shadow work, where you had to work with your inner child, where you had to learn how to forgive, where you yourself really, where you had to learn to let go and surrender to higher power and all these things. Guys, you are now the small part of the population that is actually trained for this. Yeah. Here, just real quick, I mean, the slides are more or less like reminders for myself, right? The new energy alignment for October is out. It's called Integrity. You can go to SoundCloud and listen to it there. Here, just a few notes before I move into the official forecast for October. This is basically a message for you guys, because through the step training here in the Sacred Self-Healing Program, you already have sort of a lingo for this. There's an aspect in October that's very sweet and very beautiful. And it leads back to something that you've seen maybe in some of my quotes and stuff. It says, truth reminds me of love. And I want to ask you here real quick before we move into the forecast, if you can connect with this. Truth reminds me of love. Or the quote is actually, we can feel truth by how it feels. Yeah, truth feels like love. Cindy is sharing, you can feel it in your heart. Yes, and it is, Cindy, would you mind coming forward? Because it's a very specific feeling when something feels so true to you. Why am I comparing this with love? Hey there.
It's very hard to put words to, so bear with me. It is an absolute feeling of warmth and expansive and safety, and that like nothing else matters.
Mm-hmm. I like that part. Nothing else matters, right? Because there can still be sort of the head that says, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. And you still hear that, right? It's there too. You can hear your thoughts, right? But it is so powerful in you, right? That nothing else matters in that moment.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful description, Cindy. Thank you. It's what I call unconditionality. That is what unconditionality is, guys. Yeah, you may see pros and cons and all that, but when you know that something is true to you, yeah, all that doesn't matter. You know, when I was 18, I asked an older friend of mine, so my best friend at the time, actually this was a couple, they were married. They seemed so old to me. They were almost 30 and they were already married. And I asked him, I said, how do you know that you love someone? I mean, that you truly love someone. And you know what he said to me? I can tell you exactly what it feels like. Oh yeah, I said I was very curious. And at the time, to me, this couple, they were sort of they were like the epitome of a cool couple to me, of like people who are in love. I have not seen sort of functional relationships until then. Yeah, so they were the only sort of couple that I thought was really cool, and there must be love there. And he said to me, the way you look at your dog. I was a dog owner. I've had dogs all my life. And how you pet your dog and how you interact with your dog. Yeah, and these moments, even if it's just a few seconds here or there, where you are so in tune with your dog. If you ever meet a guy you feel the same way about, then you know it's love. And at the time I thought, oh, that's cool. I can use that as an example, because that I had a reference feeling for. And it wasn't so much, he wasn't comparing men with dogs. Don't go there, please. What he was referring to was really because he knew me for a long time already. He knew how sincere I was about dogs and how seriously I took this and how unconditionally I loved my dogs. And he said that this is how you know. When something feels like that, that's how you know it's true to you. Yeah, and for many years I used this as sort of my measure stick, my measuring stick. And you can imagine I had some funny situations where if my dogs didn't like my boyfriends, they really had a hard time with me. Just on a side note here. But yes, it's nothing else matters in that moment. And it is different from an impulse that comes from your ego. Yeah, your ego will produce a feeling of, I want more. Yeah, it's more this sort of gratification feeling. Yeah, but unconditional love, truth, is different. It is fulfilling. You're no longer seeking for anything. It quenches that thirst for more. It's also a very good definition of unconditional love in relationships. But as we were talking about truth, yeah. And there is one thing that we can feel this with, regardless of dogs or boyfriends or girlfriends. And that has to do with our own true self. So for me at the time, this was the perfect analogy because I was still suffering from self-love deficiency, if you will. I did not know what self-love was at the time, but I never forgot what my friend told me then and used that as a way shower for myself, yeah, for calibrating myself to truth and unconditionality until I could feel this within myself as my own integrity. And then later until I could feel this for my grace, yeah, for the grace in me, yeah, the higher power in me. So that's why I have these slides here. In October, I don't get this very often. The 3 graces came in for us in the energetic tune-up yesterday. And it is, you know, the Trinity that we work with here so much at transCODES. And it just so happens to be auspicious timing for that. I don't know why the 3 graces came in for October, but I think it was for me to recognize that these 3 virtues, these 3 graces, wisdom, strength, and harmony, or truth, freedom, and love, as I usually call them, that they are the ones that will guide us here through this month. And we have the Grace Gaia Sophia Marathon come up on Wednesday next week, which works with the 3 graces. I thought that was really, really cool. If you guys are interested, it's one of the really, really, really cool marathons for 3 days. We are actively working with these energies. It's a very, very beautiful process, goes very deep, very beautiful. Yeah. So let's move into the energy analysis and forecast for October. Welcome everybody to the energy analysis and forecast for October 21. My name is Jona Bryndis, and we are looking at the collective energy as it displays itself. It's not a channeling or a prediction, it's actually more of a report, something that I have already basically read out here at transCODES, working with energetically sensitives and precognitively trained people from all over the world. In October, we're dealing with some very pivotal developments for our societies here that will probably last for another 1.5 years. This is also where I basically sort of come up with the predictions that until you know, the end of 22, the beginning, the spring of 23, that we're going to have to deal with the whole COVID-related shifts and changes here in our society. Here in September, it is really the month this year where the main theme of this whole sort of shift in our societies, how this is coming about and what needs to happen in October is when it takes on form. So most of my audience here, you watching and you present here with the live discussion, you guys are energetically sensitives or empathic in some way. And those are all things that you have been picking up on all along. All right. But for now, you know, this has been something that we needed to process in the shadows unless we were able to find communities where a deeper self-healing and the discussion was possible, where there was a safe space enough without judgment or without specialness to discuss all these things. So for us, it's almost like it's been there all along for a long time already. But for many people, these things that are coming here to the forefront, that are being revealed here in these weeks of September and October, are new, and that requires us to recognize that there is, of course, a lot of confusion and a lot of cognitive dissonance in all of us. And I want to reflect here on just like how that is going to be perceived, and without going into causation, without going into like who's responsible for what or speculating about this. I just really want to report about how this is going to feel for us. The main developments here in October as compared to September, where it was just basically sort of news that was coming out every day, yeah, over and over, and it won't stop, guys. This is something that will continue to happen here throughout the rest of the year, that shows us a new reality. And right now what we're having is almost like sort of a straddling two worlds situation, this bifurcation that I've mentioned so many times, where we have multiple, or at least two different realities that we are seeing ourselves in, because for each piece of information that is coming out, we're getting just as many sort of counter pieces of information, which is something that is really concerning right now, because it really messes with people's brains. It really makes people lose their heads. I've talked a lot about this in the past, and there's many workshops and lectures and talks that you can listen to here on my YouTube channel, explaining this in more depth. But the point being that this sort of narrative, how the world is, or how we are supposed to see the world, that this is now slowly breaking down. And we are looking at some really concerning developments here in October. We don't need to be afraid of that, because it is not what we think it is. It is in a completely different way. There'll be a completely new perspective, and a need to recontextualize some of the things that we have believed in. Yeah. Again, here for many of you, this isn't really news, but for the majority of people out there, it is. And so once more, please, guys, have patience, have understanding that for what is happening here right now, this dealing with multiple realities, that the majority of people out there are not able to, or just not trained to do this like you are. Okay, you have painfully experienced what that means to see the world in a different way all along, and you've developed coping mechanisms, some of which maybe weren't that healthy, but you have maybe put effort into the healing of that, yeah, through bringing in the spiritual component, through bringing in sort of more body awareness and more self-love, and educating yourself on how, you know, trauma, inner child, and shadow work, and so forth, how that all works in the practical. And so you have already developed maybe through necessity, okay, tools to deal with what is about to break down some of the main structures here in our collective in these next 3 months. Okay, so we're looking at things such as failing diplomacy between countries that used to be allies. We're looking at something that will, and I only wrote it down like literally the way this was displayed to me, that will probably go into history books as a October revolution. If you're not familiar with the term, Google it. Yeah, this is something that you want to pay attention to, and something that a keyword that you will probably read more often, namely menticide. All right, so the future wars, guys, they are not really going to be conducted the way they were in the past, with sort of cannon fodder and individual humans sort of used as a combat kind of war, more so in regards to what people are supposed to think and the realities that they are supposed to see. So, hence, sort of the parallels with the Matrix movies. Yeah. But and this is something that has been happening here throughout the year, the media wars that we have been seeing, the data handling, how exactly pretty much how I have been predicting this here for a long time, and all this is falling apart now. All right. The word menticide is a word that refers to fucking with people's minds, basically, and as a means of war, as a means of well, you know, manipulating people, yeah, in the sense of mind control, but more than that, yeah, literally making them lose their minds, and that's something that will now become more visible and will have to be investigated. So there are a lot of organizations and associations that are popping up now. October will be full of new formed collectives and societies and so forth that are coming forward as sort of integrity checkers, as you know, something like collaboratives, or you know, concerned lawyers all over the world, concerned doctors, concerned scientists, concerned sociologists, concerned psychologists and teachers, literally pointing this out to people, how dangerous this is that is happening right now in our media, in our environment, with how we are being manipulated as to what we're supposed to think. This is much more severe than you think it is. And I want to just point out, for those of you who have been on this sort of fringe dweller side of society, that you guys have so much training in this, that if you haven't realized yet that you have something to offer here, yeah, if you have not been able to heal that and contextualize that as a power, as something that you can actually use and assist other people with, then I would say this is really the time now where you need to go into healing with this. Yeah, this isn't the time to say, I told you so. This isn't the time to say, oh, see, I'm right, just because you've experienced ridiculing or shaming in the past. This is the time where you have to realize that this is real. This is full on, okay? And if it helps you to come to some sort of karmic reconciliation with your own trauma, then this is the time where you can see what the meaning, yeah, of your past, and why this was so much struggle for you in the past. So I really want to send out these words of courage and hope to all of you, because it is important that we recognize the purpose of our trauma and the synchronicity in that. As you know, I have sort of called this the theme of September. In October, the theme is integrity, and as such, really the integrity of realities. Here, the picture for the energy alignment that you can listen to on SoundCloud, that allows your energy body to go into higher levels of integrity through this invocation style, yeah, these energy processes that I produce every month. The way this will turn out for us, the challenges here for us individually, obviously it depends a lot on which country you live in, what kind of society, what kind of setting, socioeconomical setting you're in. But the overall energies here in October will feel challenging in a way that we will all kind of feel a bit of this sort of immediacy and this need to move on and to close out things. Okay, there's a completion of an old cycle. And maybe you will feel this more in the sense of anxiety, okay, needing to do something new real quick, or coming up with new solutions real quick, and it will feel a bit pressured. So my tip for you is to actually teach yourself and discipline yourself to calm down, so that you can, I know you need to work with your nervous system here, as I always describe this in the weekly energy updates, and work with your ability to actually clear your mind and see through some of these body mind reactions, right, where your nervous system takes over your emotions and your thoughts. Yeah, so moving on is really important here in October, and there will be cool aspects about this, but here for this particular slide, the challenges, I want to describe what this might feel like from the inside. It might actually feel like that you are literally or figuratively feeling locked in. Self-imposed restrictions came up earlier here in the discussion. It's almost like this purge energy, this release that was needed in September to move on and to find closure in our own willingness to grow and our willingness to actually learn from the past, that got stuck a little bit. So there will be, especially in the first week of October, there will be sort of a delayed release, and unfortunately that's going to trigger a lot of sort of unresty feelings in the majority of our populations, because these revelation aspects of last month, they're going to continue throughout the end of the year. Okay, it's going to build and build and build, because right now what we're seeing is a doubling and tripling down on these alternate realities, and therefore the tension isn't released yet. That will happen in October, and then also in November. It will trigger some of your traumas. I just mentioned that. You will be reminded of things in the past, especially those of you who have been through a bit of, maybe relationships with narcissists or narcissistic personality types, of a family constellation, or a job, a boss, where you literally had to fight for your own needs and your own wants. And many of us are in this place that we don't even permit ourselves to have needs and wants. Okay, if this is how you grew up, it will really trigger this part in you that you dismiss your own needs and wants unless you've already worked through this. And the way this will come to you is in regards to safety, what you deem or believe safety is, and what you are willing to sell for it, what you are willing to sacrifice for it. Yeah, this will be the big integrity question for October. Yeah, here just a hint for those of you who have already identified or are about to identify that some of their inabilities or their restrictions, and especially the self-imposed restrictions, lead back to toxic family systems. Please don't all turn on your parents or your neighbors or whatever, because they have their karma to carry as well. And it's very important that we understand here that this collective gaslighting that is going on, that this is not just now. This has been going on for 30, 40, 50, actually much longer. I've already mentioned this before, but specifically here regarding these last, the current and the last 2 generations, this has been going on for a long time. So your parents wouldn't have been able to see that before either. So stepping into our health authority is now really the last call, guys. You really got to step up, especially if you live in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're heading into winter months with less light and less sort of vitamin D in your system, you got to change some of your health routines, and that will be challenging for some of you. Okay, so this is really the months where you need to put that into action. Yeah, October comes with a very pragmatic, a very sensual, a very sort of 3D energy to it, and it's very important that we step into this. Now, here with the next point, more joy and humor. I was wondering why I would put that on the challenges slide, but it's because it will be very hard to actually see humor and to find ways to add joy and beauty to our lives. So this will be a challenge, and it is so much needed. Yeah, so if you can remember this, yeah, that humor is a very high vibratory healing resonance. If you can remember to bring that in here with, you know, no matter how tragic your situation is, not sarcastic, not sarcasm, you know, or cynicism, uh, but to move into lightness, and maybe also a good portion of self-humor, you know, where you see your own rigidities and your own restrictions and your own sort of OCD sometimes, and where you just like crack a joke about it. It helps everybody to release that tension, yeah, that tension of restriction. For many of us, we're going to have to really work with a healthy masculinity and femininity. I've mentioned this yesterday in the energetic tune-up. It's a particularly difficult time for all of you spiritual men out there, because we actually need healthy masculinity right now. And I'm saying this as a woman right now. It's really important that you guys, regardless of what your belief system is, that you recognize that a big part of this masculine energy, and this can also be understood as those of you who have chosen masculine energies. Okay, this is not just related to the gender, but you know, obviously primarily to men who have you know, chosen by you know what they identify with, that you step into that you really step into, you know, this protective and directive energy now. Okay, it is also important really to investigate healthy femininity in that regards. Yeah, that it comes with the patience and the unconditionality of recognizing that we can learn through mistakes the best, and we learn through pain 2.5 times faster. Yeah, that's part of basically our human nature, and to have compassion for that with ourselves and others. So since we have masculine and feminine energies within ourselves, all of us, you know, we have to work on both of these levels. But October is a month that really wants you know, the healthier expressions of our masculine energies, and that means that we have to step in, we have to make a stance, we have to step up, we have to like really show up for ourselves, and sometimes also for others if you know, we have families and so forth. Yeah. Obviously, you know, in regards to mind control and menticide, perception problems, you know, this the really will be more or less the biggest theme here for the rest of the year, and also way into 22, namely this straddling between two realities and accepting that there are different realities at this very moment. Yeah, and that we have to come to terms with that, in that sense that we don't start fighting against another. Unfortunately, on those more sort of world political and economical stage, that will not work. Okay, so we will see new kinds of wars emerging on top of this sort of media war that is going on. So these realities, these seemingly conflicting realities, they are producing a lot of cognitive dissonances in people, and that makes people sick. It makes people not be able to think clearly, feel clearly, and sense clearly, and that's why the word menticide can be seen as a tool of war. Forgiveness for the pain of the past has to do with not going into judgment here. You have to understand that this is deliberate and systematic. Okay, so it takes a warrior of the heart. Yeah, it takes someone with a lot of training, and that happens to be a lot of you guys. Okay, with processed trauma. Yeah, so you have to understand that this is not what you can expect now to see from these majorities. It will trigger identity issues in many of us, a false sense of belonging, false sense of security. Latest when some of the things that we have always counted on, I can only speak for the United States right now, something like health insurance or something like pensions and social security, when those things start becoming questionable, and issues with corruption and so forth, you know, things that we could never believe existed here in this country. When these things come or become more obvious, it will be really rough for a lot of people. Yeah, so that's because we have sacrificed and well, more or less sold our love and our soul sometimes for these things. Yeah, it's very difficult for people to accept that. The opportunities are that you know, that we will see a whole entirely new context, and this will help many of us to see really new doors opening. Those aren't really new, you know, these things were always there. It's just that through that confrontation with untruths, we are being forced to make a stance, and that allows us to become more courageous and fearless, and step into something that was kind of always there, but that we've sort of withheld a bit. And in October, you're going to feel that empowerment. You're going to feel that that support to really step into this. This is interesting, you know, as a coach and energy therapist, I can tell you that, you know, there's nothing more empowering for a person than working through their trauma and recognizing the virtues that they have developed in the course of working through trauma, really actively working with it, not processing it and re-traumatizing themselves, but actually really going into forgiveness and compassion with things, you know, really recognizing these higher expressions of humanness and the warmth and the love, the unconditionality that we can learn to access through our trauma, yeah, or processing trauma healing, yeah. And in that way, it's really a beautiful opportunity for true healing, for much deeper levels of healing for all of us. And healing, just as a reminder here, is something from an energetic point of view that we regard as something that moves from a lower vibratory into a higher vibratory state relative to what it was before. In other words, it's basically the progress, and there are certain thresholds, truth being one of those thresholds. So when something moves into truth and beyond, it becomes self-sustaining. It does no longer need a projection or sort of our ego's force to be sustained. Okay, and it becomes self-propelling. It's very interesting for those of you who are interested in the more sort of detail work of energy work, how this can be measured. Yes, the opportunity of closure can also be something positive, namely that some of you might actually feel that it's time to finally buy this house. Yeah, we're thinking about buying houses for years, and now is the time. Why is this a good time for that? Because in times of crisis, humans have, and this is, you can look this up in history, always gravitated to its intrinsic values, to tangibles, things that are very tangible. Yeah, and that means that even though we're looking into a time of hyperinflation now, we are also looking at really the things that mean something to people, like home, family, like I predicted many years ago, yeah, that these will become our priorities. You know, security and so forth, that these things will become more valuable. So in other words, they may not rise in price because, you know, there's multiple economic things and shifts and redistributions that are happening right now. but they will definitely not lose any value. So many people will intuitively feel this, yeah, and that's why I think this is a good move. For many of you, it's also that these trauma triggers that I've mentioned, that they come with this need to have, yeah, it's this sort of most fundamental need, shelter and protection on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, it may not be needed for you to own a house if you don't own one yet, but you will feel that as an impulse. And if it's not about owning, then think about how you can make your home, how you can produce a safer space within your own home. Like I've mentioned before, there will be an impulse that comes in as sort of as an unexpected courage, as an unexpected support when you step into your true self, when you say yes to yourself, okay? And many of you will start new careers, some of which will be related to the mandates and you know, just literally being forced out of your job, okay? But not entirely. This is also a lot of people discovering what their true skill set is and how that can be of service to others. This will really change in the future, like what kind of jobs are needed and wanted, okay? And obviously everything that is healing related will be very, very high in demand. Yeah, so you healers and light workers and shamans and so forth out there, you are going to be really busy, but you have to do this the right way. All right, so this is a really good month, October, to found your corporation or your business, and to get started on this. Self-healing wise, the deeper processes that we can look at in October have to do with obviously continued systematic energy management, but also the mutual self-reporting. We have to come to terms that we as humans exist on different levels, dimensions of reality at all times. Yeah, I often, pretty much every single talk that I do, I mention this, yeah, on the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual and energetic level. Those are the different realities that we can perceive ourselves as, or our life and our world and us in the world as. And you can train this with neutral self-reporting, where you come to terms with the fact that, you know, physically you're feeling like this, emotionally you're feeling like this, mentally, you know, intellectually you're feeling like that, spiritually, and by self-reporting this to you, that you feel this in these different ways, you'd be surprised what happens. I've been training this for over 10 years, systematic energy healing with yourself, and you begin to see a new picture of yourself. So things such as compassion and forgiveness and so forth that I've mentioned a few minutes ago, they will become much more tangible for you, and you will recognize that it's not mystical at all. There's a system to that, but you have to learn how to work with that, and it starts with the different levels of your perception. Yeah, new levels of self-love that then literally comes as a consequence of you dealing with these different realities within yourself. Yeah, you begin to see how you couldn't have done things differently in the past because you simply couldn't see those different dimensions before. Ideally, and you know, this is basically what I teach, you know, it leads to us recognizing the need for more togetherness and intimacy with another, obviously not in the physical sense, but in the sense of sharing and collaborating and really working together, like I have been doing here this last month. I started a daily energy prayer on a YouTube live, 20 minutes every day at the same time, coming together and offering our energy to this sort of higher vibratory work, where we write a prayer together and do this in a non-denominational, non-religious way. It's just us realizing our inner power and how that multiplies and amplifies when we come together. something along those lines, as I have always emphasized group work as practically the highest level of self-healing here at transCODES in the different courses and programs that I have. It will also show us the karmic purpose of some of our pains of the past and what we have been perceiving as flaws. Those things will turn out to be real gems and real treasures of our own personality, because we have learned to recognize that through our trauma in the past that we have been forced to develop these virtues, and this is then also a big part of this recontextualization in October, where everything will just take on a whole new perspective. So the antidote for October integrity is signified here through these energies and the need to focus more on that, standing in truth, deeper soul connection, humor, support, and moving forward without closure. It's okay to not sort of having a happy ending. You guys have to let go of the Hollywood version of life that is not real. However, it doesn't mean that it's sort of Dante's Inferno. It doesn't mean that. So the opposite of non-Hollywood ending is not apocalypse. Okay, the ending or the moving forward without closure is a more mature way of moving forward. Yeah, and recognizing that sometimes things they just don't fit anymore, and that's it. And that moving forward and the willingness to grow is basically the strongest way I can show up for myself without needing to explain it or justify it. Yeah, embracing a new reality and conscious questioning. It's not a time for self-destruct, guys. Many of you will feel sort of or have the sense of hopelessness, or what the heck, it doesn't matter anymore. This is really part of this menticide manipulation that you are subjected to. So be careful with this. If you have those kind of thoughts, go reach out to someone, a friend, a therapist, a coach, a mentor, or energy reader, energy healer, because this is not real. All right, this is part of the overlay, the projection that you're subjected to. It's also really important to discipline ourselves a bit, whether it's the one side of our darkness, the passivity and externalizing everything, or the blind action and trying to rebel against everything. Both are not conducive in October. Funny, when I wrote this, I thought, I want to express something along those lines that, we really don't need to sort of try to work around things or beat around the bush or something like that, and we should really stay away from sugar too. And in my sort of connected mind immediately started to think about sugar coating, and maybe we should eat the cakes without sugar coating. This is all complicated stuff, but really what I want to say is be direct, go forward, and on a physical level, stay away from sugar, because it really trashes your immune system and feeds cancers. Anyway, just real quick here, a few minutes, I'm just going to zoom through this. Physical challenges are things that we need to look out for, the emotional reality that we are going to experience, and mentally, okay, what it is that we need to focus on. If you signed up to my newsletter, you'll get the slides, and you can basically figure this out how I mean this, because it would be redundant for me to go through this here. Just real quick, a note, I always point out the energetic challenges are based on the chakra system. Most likely, you're going to feel a lot of pressure here in your throat chakra. That is everything pertaining your throat, your neck, your shoulders, your sort of above your heart, your higher heart chakra, the thymus, thymus is going to be very important, that you maybe tap it. There's a video called thymus tapping that I have on the YouTube channel, is you know, to increase your lymphatic release, the whole sort of elimination of toxins really needs to be sped up. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's not so good time for detoxing now. That should have happened basically sort of August, September, but obviously, you know, sort of a 3-day light fast where you just have juices and broths or something like that is always useful, and sort of kickstarts your metabolism. It's about standing in your truth and expressing your truth, guys. And this has to do with you know, really releasing some of these locked in and held back emotions, the unacknowledged pain of the past. It's hard to do this on your own. You really need someone to guide you through that, to acknowledge the pain of the past. Your second chakra, that's your belly area, that's your lower belly, that's you know, your sacral area, will act up. Your heart chakra obviously requires you to step into true courage. That is a different kind of courage than the one that our ego or our willpower alone suggests. It is the kind of courage that you feel when you know that something is true for you and nothing else matters. Yeah, some of you might feel this in conjunction with the mandates and the vaccines. All right, you will be supported if you step into that courage. Overall, same theme here for our first and seventh chakra. That's sort of the anchoring of ourselves in the universe. It needs to focus around security, true security, what makes you feel safe. Yeah, also here, just a quick hint to these healthy masculine energies that I've mentioned earlier. Important dates here, yeah, you can see we have a little bit of an issue here right in the first week of October, guys. This time here, 6th, 7th till the 9th, a bit critical time. Okay, watch out, lots of accidents will happen in that time. These continued revelations that I've talked about, they will go much deeper than people thought. On October 16th, 17th, we're going to see something here in regards to our financial systems. New lockdowns possible, it depends on where you're at in the world. And really around the 20th of October, guys, yeah, I hate to say it, but something that I have been calling fanaticism, I always thought that it would come in form of like sort of religious fanaticism, but I'm seeing now that this is linked to the menticide, to this sort of systematic mindfuck, so to speak. So we're going to see people really losing their heads, like running around like you know, chickens with a cut off head. It's not funny, the pictures here, the images. Those of you who are in cryptos, guys, there's a correction coming. Okay, we can see levels of 35K for BTC, all the way maybe even 32. Watch out for 6th of October. If you are a hodler, and you guys know what these words mean, I'm not going to explain this. I have training videos here on my YouTube channel. You're going to be fine. Okay, continued alt season. In other words, there are some really cool companies that are emerging right now. Look at those companies that are providing safe data networks for all these media outlets that have been banned or restricted. Yes, so the courage to live truth comes from the courage to love truth. That's a bit of a mantra here for this month of October. And there really isn't anything we need to worry about if we can feel who we truly are, and if we can allow ourselves to live according to our needs and wants. And sometimes we need the reminder, and this is something here that is in the energy alignment. Yeah, it sounds like true self. Yeah, you speaking to your own true self. Remind me to stay awake and aware. Help me to feel and discern the power of integrity. so that I can see through the distractions of fear and loss. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating live. Thank you for watching this video, for giving it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're interested in the daily energy prayer, you'll find a playlist there. There's a new live stream link every day. If you are interested in the daily sacred self meditations that are going on Skype, also publicly accessible for free. Or if you're interested in any of my programs, please go to transcodes.com and see if some of these training or programs, courses that I have, or private individual sessions, if they could be interesting for you. I wish you a wonderful October, guys. Yeah, it's amazing. Also something that we can thank our true selves for, to be so conscious in times like this. Don't see this as a tragedy. Yeah, see this as something that almost like a badge of honor, okay, that you chose to be fully awake and aware in these times. Love you guys. See you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.